Today, I am delighted to welcome Nick Fewings to the show. Nick has always been fascinated with teamwork, ever since he failed when he became an accidental manager. This sparked his passion for understanding teamwork and what is it, why some teams are good at it, and how you can be effective. How can the effectiveness of a team be increased? This passion led Nick into work with hundreds of teams and profile thousands of individuals around the world. He's also spoken at over 500 conferences, helped both leaders and teams understand how to create a positive and effective team working environment that empowers both individuals and teams to achieve greater success. He calls himself the Teamworkologist, a person who studies the dynamics of teamwork, and he's devoted 32 years of his career to understand how high performance teams can be created, sharing this knowledge and experience with others, helping them feel valued and appreciated for parts that they play as being part of an effective team. He's the creator of Team Dynamics, Team Dynamics. He'll tell me how I should pronounce it soon, I'm sure. A model that measures overall team effectiveness, in addition to effectiveness across 16 areas that are fundamental to achieving effective teamwork. And he published a book in March 2022, Team Lead Succeed, which has become an international bestseller and book of national interest in the UK. And in 2004, he co-created Our Team Synergy, which enables teams to create their own reports and learn how to interpret them, facilitate conversations with the team, and celebrate what is working well and implement practical solutions to overcome challenges. Nick, welcome to the show.
Good evening, and what an introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, we joke there, and it's obviously that's Nick's little bio that he's got there, and there's a little bit of we're talking about using Copilot to fix it, make it Nick wise rather than I wise, which is quite entertaining. Tell us more about you, then, Nick. Obviously, that tells us the marketing blurb. What's the story behind you?
The story behind me. Well, I'm a Janner, first and foremost, so hence the accent, because a Janner is somebody who was born in Plymouth.
Right.
I don't know exactly where the phrase was created, but yeah, if you go to Plymouth, if you come across somebody who's born there, they will be known as a Janner. So brought up there, went to school there, left school with really dreadful A-level results, just scraped through, and thought, I love playing Monopoly. I need a job, so I could play Monopoly with real money if I joined the bank. So I joined Barclays Bank. So started off in my city of birth, Plymouth, and then when you used to get promotion, they would move you to a different branch, so that you would meet new people, but also it would reduce the risk of fraud because you weren't in a branch long enough to be able to do something clandestine. So moved all around the West Country, and then got into technology, IT. A great thing called Lotus 123, which was the forerunner of a Microsoft Excel. Found I was really good at using it, and increased the branch's profits in Plymouth by 25%. And all of a sudden, somebody at the Southwest Regional Office pricked up their ears and said, well, you know, if you can do it for one branch, we've got 88 branches in the Southwest. Tell us the tricks. So worked as the executive assistant to the regional director in Exeter, and then made a name for myself there, and got headhunted to go to Barclays Pool, where I was in charge of an operational team that produced the bank's profit and loss. These accountants thought I was off a totally different planet, because behaviourally I was totally different to them. They were there with their calculators and abacuses, and I was just saying, get the accounts out, and they say, "Oh, we're just going to triple check that these figures are right." So then I studied project management, and technically I was very good. Got into got my accreditation in project management, and some bright spark of a manager said, we need a project doing. There's a team of 10 people. We want you to lead it. And that's when everything went pear-shaped. Um, I I said to the manager, I said, what leadership training are you going to give me? What training are you going to give me about teamwork? And he said, oh, no, you've got 2 weeks to hand over your job, and you've got 2 weeks to take over this role as project manager. So, yeah, it was a total nightmare, total car crash. I blew the budget. Timescales went out the window. The project was a bit of software that was being implemented, had loads of bugs in it. I totally destroyed the team. And actually, for about 6 months, I was in a really bad place myself. And I started questioning, how good I was I up to leadership and teamwork. And I thought, I've got my project management exams. What's gone wrong? And at one point, I think, did think, was it because I'm from the West Country and we're meant to be a bit thick down there, a bit agricultural? Uh, but no, the case was that I wasn't given the appropriate training to lead other people and the understanding about teamwork. So, being the inquisitive person I am, that started the journey of me becoming a teamworkologist, really being inquisitive about people and how effectively they work together.
Brilliant. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Just jumping back a couple of things. I remember, look, I just out of curiosity, really. Lotus 123 was what I cut my teeth on from a as a trainee accountant and a failed accountant in the end. But do you still set Microsoft Excel to have the Lotus 123 transition keys? So when you're moving around in Excel, you move around using the same keyboard touch strokes, or did you not
Um,
used to use them much?
the simple answer is no.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
So I can't. The way that Excel works, the way that I just automatically move around with the keyboard, it just
Yeah.
if I've got normal Excel stuff, it just goes mad. And that's just because I spent 10 years using Lotus 123
Yeah.
and just doing it
Yeah.
that way. It's just
Well,
something ingrained.
it was an incredible time back in the 80s, because it was Lotus 123. Um, Also, I was the Barclays in Plymouth, and me as an individual, we were the first people to trial backs with clients. Bank transfers. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was great times. It was really good. But you look back now and you think, wow, that's in the dimming distant past.
Well, it's interesting. You look at stuff like that and how technology moves on, and there's, uh, as we both know, we were both. I was at Barclays as well at one time, and the company I worked at before Barclays, and this was '93, something like that. They had quite a cash cow, the company that we were running with, and some of the group companies didn't have a lot of cash around. But there was a job that I had on an evening at about 4 o'clock, was to put money that we had in the cash on the overnight money markets.
Oh,
So there was a computer in my boss's room with this software on there to allow us to do this, which I would log on there, and then it would, through a dial up to the to our group system in order
yeah,
to us to move money around and do different, so they could move money here and do things like that. And then
yeah.
obviously we got to Barclays after that, and it just, you think back now of those sort of technologies that were there, and
Oh,
and I remember getting authorization to get email when I joined Barclays,
yeah,
because
yeah,
not everyone had email, and I had to get
yeah.
that authorization. And the accountants I worked with, one of them had a green and a red pen, and he
Oh,
would
yes,
a green and a
yeah,
red pen. And we
yeah,
were,
yeah,
Barclays Computer Operations was the area I was in, so we were doing lots of financial reporting for cross-charging and things like that to different
yeah,
parts. And as you know, there's little fiefdoms within Barclays, as
yeah,
there are in all organisations. And yeah, it was a fascinating time to go into IT around that
yeah,
time, because it was always a little blur on it.
yeah.
And it's,
Oh, it's funny you mentioned about the money markets, because it was the LIBOR rate, the London Interbank Offer Rate. And funny you say about that, because that was one of the many times I got hauled into the manager's office, because we had quite a few big clients in Plymouth, and one of them so this is back in the 80s, used to have about £10 million to invest overnight, and I had to put the investment on, and I unfortunately had added an extra zero at the end of it, so much so that it actually changed the money market interest rate. Yeah, because going from 10 million to 100 million.
Big
Yeah,
deposit, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So that's
oh,
made
but
me that's made me sweat.
even now, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I was talking to my daughters the other day about uh, Bearings Bank and the Rogue Trader
yeah,
the film with Ewan McGregor about Nick. I can't remember his name. It was another Nick. But it was just that whole time again. Those sort of things were so sensitive to that, and whereas now it's, I suppose there is still a little bit of that, especially around some of the Bitcoin type stuff that's come on
yeah,
recently. Yeah. But it's quite fascinating, that whole financial markets thing.
yeah.
But even then, it was complicated. Now it's fascinatingly complicated.
Oh yeah,
Um, I do remember you saying about your training. I remember being at Barclays. We went on a residential training up in the Lake District, which with a local company from that Northwich at the time, so I worked up this way, and they were Walton Churchill was the name of the company. I still remember that. So this is over 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? My brain's doing quite well, I think, today. And that was the first time I got introduced to Myers Briggs
oh yeah, yeah,
as a I'd done sort of business studies as part of my qualifications when I was younger, and we hadn't really covered and gone into sort of the psychological side of it, what I would describe as psychological. More from that point of view, there was a lot on Hertzberg and on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and those
oh
sort of
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The base fundamental
yeah,
motivational things, and less about the people and character stuff. There was a little bit in there because I do remember there was a bit on. Was it Sanguine? Is it Jungian, the ones that they
yeah,
kind of there's this,
yeah. I mean, most of it.
was it Aristotle that started that? It's
No,
come a long way.
yeah, it goes back initially to Hippocrates.
That's
So
it. Yeah,
the guy that's famous for the Hippocratic Oath, that doctors used to take it, but they don't need to take it anymore once they've passed all their studies,
yeah,
because the Hippocratic Oath is about saving lives at all costs. So now
yeah,
we've got the dilemmas of euthanasia, life support machines. So doctors can opt in nowadays or opt out of taking the Hippocratic Oath. But yeah, Hippocrates studied behaviors, and he was the first person to identify four top level people. So cholerics were the first, and they were direct to the point. No messing with them. Use their finger. They want to
yeah,
know when it's going to happen, how they're going to get involved, and let's just do it. And then you mentioned the sanguines, and the sanguines are quite optimistic, open, fun-loving. Their glass is always half empty, and they want it overflowing. Come up lots of ideas. They love talking to people, and they love a bit of fun and enjoyment and variety of life. And then you've got the phlegmatics, and they're quieter. They're very people centric. They want to make sure that everybody's on board, that there's no conflict between individuals. Um, they don't like to be put on the spot. And then the last, so you've got the cholerics, the sanguines, the phlegmatics, and then the last is you've got the melancholics. And the melancholics like process, they like procedure. They tend to talk with one level in their voice. They don't get excited about things. Everything's matter of fact. It's about dotting the I's, crossing the T's, etc., etc. So, and these four play off each other. So the cholerics tend to irritate the phlegmatics, because the cholerics are focused on business and doing things irrespective of whether they annoy or irritate people, whereas the phlegmatics, the opposite, they want harmony in relationships. And the melancholics and the sanguines, again, they can clash because the sanguines are too bubbly for the melancholics. The melancholics like their peace and quiet, and they like to do things by a particular method. And you can see it playing out in business. This, these types of people, and also what jobs we're attracted to, because quite often the role that we undertake, if it appeals to our behavioural style, we'll actually enjoy doing that job.
I suppose you also, with enjoying it, you will also be good at it as well. Because if it suits your behavioural style and you're good at it,
Yeah,
that's sometimes you may not even enjoy it, but if because of your behavioural style you're good at it, you can
yeah.
end up going down a route, can't you?
Exactly, and that's when I work with teams. I always say to the leader, you've got to make sure that the team around you have complementary and diverse people skills, because that's where the magic happens. You know, you need those people with lots of the choleric, or what I call the red energy, to drive things forward, to move things at pace, to keep their eye on the objectives, the targets, the deliverables. But equally, they can go off too quickly, and therefore you need the green, the phlegmatics, to make sure that everybody on the team actually goes in the same direction at the same speed. Um, you need the sanguines, that yellow energy, to be creative and think outside the box and come up with different ideas. Most of the ideas be useless, but they are good at coming up with some nuggets. And of course, that melancholic, the blue, they're the ones that'll say, that's the idea that will work. And I will actually tell you factually why it will work and why it'll be successful. So yeah, you need this diversity, because I've worked with teams where they're homogenous. So homogenous is where you've got a group of people that are virtually all the same behaviorally, and basically they're like a group of sheep. One of them bleats and the others bleat, and they all follow each other going in the same direction. In a team, you want a heterogeneous team. You want people that are different. Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting because it's that I've seen because conflict is something that well, as you can probably tell by my logo, it's bright yellow. You can probably guess where I kind of sit. Maybe
yeah,
sometimes down in the more I forget the one now, but the sort of more reserved and people interested one. And sometimes I'll dip across into pointy finger, which is very rare. But
yeah,
that yellow sort of area set kind of where I kind of want to do that. I want to talk to people. Therefore, I have a podcast to talk to
yeah.
people. And,
Exactly, exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it's interesting that um, that whole uh, sort of dynamic where you've got those different people in there. For my character, I want everyone. Dropping down to I want everyone to get on. I don't particularly like conflict.
yeah,
I will into conflict. I'll do judo for as one of my hobbies, so it's conflict, sport conflict, but more for enjoyment rather than that. So I really do. I get uncomfortable when there's conflict within my teams that I'm managing,
yeah,
and kind of I can have a homogenous team that
yeah,
never fall out, but don't
yeah,
really get anything done.
yeah,
But then I've got teams where they've been a little bit more
yeah,
to that, which makes me feel uncomfortable, and I kind of have to. But then they actually do move on, and it's interesting sitting there going, I've had some people who've been really really strong characters that can overwhelm that team.
yeah,
And when I look at it, it's probably not enough balance or across it. Sometimes you've got someone who's just going to be everyone's on the opposite end and trying to please rather than challenge. Right? And it's
yeah,
interesting sometimes you don't get a choice in that in your projects. You get given your team, don't you?
Yeah. I would say 95% of project teams they're already there, and you go into that project team. And I think that one of the key things for a leader is therefore developing that psychological safety. And I say to leaders, not just project management, but in operational management as well. When you go in and you lead a new team, you've got to take that team out of the day-to-day business, the business as usual, or out of the project environment, and actually spend some quality time getting to understand each other. Um, One of the easiest ways to do it is profiling. You've mentioned Myers-Briggs, DISC. There's loads out there. I've used a number of, and I still use ones with color,
Yeah,
red, yellow, green, blue, because they're easy to understand. And yeah, I think the key thing, this psychological safety, is don't see people as difficult, see them as different to you. Don't be frustrated by how they do things, be fascinated that they do things differently. And I think that's one of the key things to get the team to understand, and that will start to build trust. And once you've got trust in place, then you can start to go places.
it's interesting because as PMs, we are either um, just about to be dropped into a team that's been there working together really well because the other PM's disappeared, and they're
Yeah,
either working together or they're not working together well, and you're dropped in and you kind of got that, or you're trying to pull people in to get them in, and you'd
yeah,
like to pick the people and you don't get and you very rarely pick them from a character based or a skills based or even strength based. Sometimes it's just a case. Sometimes it's uh, that person is available. Yeah,
yeah,
they have some of the skills, not always all of the skills. They'll need some time, and so you've never. It's very rare that, and I don't know if you've seen the same, where you've got that situation where you can go, right, here's my perfect picture, my perfect avatar of my team,
yeah,
with the skills that I need, the behaviours I need, the price that I need,
yeah,
and kind of get them all together and be able to deliver, put this team together and deliver this magnificent project.
yeah,
And the thing I find is I'll go into a team. There'll be maybe an established team quite often.
yeah,
It's a team that are partially allocated to the project, um, that aren't under my direct management, a kind of persuasion to do something for my project. Um, how I say you say take people out of the environment. If you're unable to get that, and again, logistically, I'll have some people over in an offshore organisation, some people at the other end of the country. Logistically, getting those people together, obviously, you can remote stuff we can do now.
yeah,
How do you? What are the sort of things that you do to start doing? And I think we'll dive into some of the specifics around what you do with your model and the way that you approach it. But just that sort of administrative approach to doing it.
yeah,
What sort of
sure.
what would you
Yeah,
say as
I
a
mean,
PM?
yeah, I mean, face to face is the best way. Get people in a room, but obviously aware of geographical location, etc., hybrid working, all that stuff. So if you can't get people face to face, then you've got to do it via video conferencing. I would say is the second best thing. Um, I always say to people, there's two aspects. If you're going to achieve high performance teamwork, the first thing you need to understand is who is in your team. Then, secondly, once you understand who's in your team, then you need to understand, well, how effectively or not are we working together? So, the first bit, the who's in our team, there's two elements to that. There's who's in our team from a people skills perspective, and who's in our team from a technical skills perspective. So, technical skills we can find out by looking at people's CVs. We can look at internal HR records to see what courses they've been on. We can look at their certificates they've got. You know, they might be accredited with APM or PMI in the project management world, so we'll have certificates. Simply, we can talk to them and actually say, what technical skills do you have that would be of value to the team? The other side of it, the people skills, then you've got to go down the route of behavioral profiling. And as we've just discussed, there's loads of profiles out on the market. The key things I always say to people is, if you are going to use behavioral profiling, make sure that that profile is recognised by the British Psychological Society. So I don't say, I use this one, you should use it because it's brilliant. That's, it's people's decision as to what they use. But the key thing is, head to the British Psychological Society website, put in the details of the one that you're thinking of using, and it'll either say, yes, we've recognised it, which means they've tested it and it's valid, and it's valid, and also it's accurate in terms of what it produces. So that's the key thing. A lot of teams don't do this stuff, and I've seen it go horribly wrong. If you think about the amount of budgets that projects have these days, a profile for an individual, you're talking about 90 quid ish. So if you've got 10 of you on the project team, 900 quid. Technical skills, to find out people's technical skills, it doesn't cost you anything. But I say to teams, put together a matrix, simply an Excel spreadsheet, and you could use it with the Lotus 123 keypad. But actually just write people's names in one column, and then head up two columns, people skills, technical skills, and just have a session where people share that information. And then you can share that matrix with all the team, so that Fred says, oh my goodness, who's good at PowerPoint, I've got to do a presentation to stakeholders, and they can just have a look and say, Jane, she's really good at PowerPoint, so I'll see if Jane can help me. So the amount of teams that don't do that, it really frightens me. I was working with the leadership team recently, and we started doing this because they didn't do it, and we started mapping it out. And one of them said, "Oh right, you've got a degree in contract law," and this leader in their team, colleague, said, "Yeah, I got it at university." Said, "Oh, could have used your knowledge." And he said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, I had a problem with the contract the other day. Had to go to solicitors to get it sorted out. It cost the company £10,000 for the advice from the solicitors." And the other colleague said, "So what was this problem?" And he gave a little pen portrait of what it was. He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "If you come to me, I would have given you the answer that you needed, and you could have sorted it out." 10 grand just flew out of the door. It's
all about communication, isn't it? It's sometimes you sit there and you go, well, I never knew you could do that. And then it's like with me when I drop into areas, I always make the point that I'm a failed accountant. So I have some Excel skills, I have some accountancy skills. I can do stuff. Now, not necessarily best use of my time all the time, but when someone needs some help, I can help with those sort of things. I may not be able to get the total answer, but I have an appreciation of those things from a while back now, but it does make a big difference. And I think it is. I know I've moved into new areas, and no one, when I think back, no one sat down with me and go, "Well, who are you?" Do you know what I mean? When you're areas that were just merged together in different things, people moving in, you in that drift, you're there. Okay, right. What's going on here? And then no people make an assumption of your skills, your background, and what you know, and don't take the time necessary to come and find out who you are and where
yeah,
your strengths are,
yeah.
and then they end up putting a round peg and square hole, square peg and a round hole, whichever way around you want to put them, depending on how big the holes are.
Yeah, it's though when you join a new team, some teams are good at it, but others aren't. It's like when they put you in, parachute you into your desk. It's like you're in a quarantine zone that nobody's allowed to speak to you for 40 days in case you've got some horrible
Yeah,
disease.
yeah,
Um,
in case
but
some common sense.
yeah, I mean the teams that do well at it. Um, I do a thing sometimes on my workshops. I call it the journey of life, and you can do it with individuals that come into your team. Just give them a piece of flip chart paper and say simply, map out your journey of life. It's entirely up to you how much information you share or how
Yeah.
much you feel comfortable. My goodness, what a revelation it is to team members, because you have a team meeting and you say, this is Nige, he's the new guy on the block, and he's got a flip chart, and this he's going to tell you about his journey of life. And as I said, you can share as much or as little as possible. Um, and
Do you know what? That's
I've
a brilliant idea for us, and even if you're not invited to do that, as an individual,
yeah,
having that, because tomorrow, I can sit there and I can do that, and I
yeah,
can have that on a little PowerPoint slide
yeah,
that every time I go into a new team, I can
yeah,
update it. It's a little bit like my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn's got just about everything, but including the warts.
yeah,
You can pop it up and just go, yeah, this is what I've done.
yeah,
And it's not so bad when you're in your early forming years. You've done 4 or 5 years of doing stuff,
yeah,
because a lot of that stuff's very current. When you're into 20, 25, 30 years worth of working, those early day information, like you talked about someone having a degree, gets lost in your memory
yeah,
as well. Because I don't know what it was. Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. So I'm coming up on a significant milestone where I am at the moment. And I was looking back at some old stuff that was in email I'm clearing out and stuff. And I spotted something from a long time ago when I went, geez, completely forgot about that project. And
yeah,
actually, the people surrounding that project, because it was, whilst significant enough, it wasn't like one of the lines that you have necessarily on your LinkedIn thing or anything, but it was just a project that was
yeah,
significant enough for it to be, oh, that was hard, and I remember that bit. Oh, no, that person was in, that customer was, and all these things came flooding back, and there's some experiences there I could probably draw on
yeah,
and share. So it's quite an
yeah, yeah.
interesting. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it can work by jogging your memory to get you thinking about different things. Um, and also, once you share it, again, that helps to build trust between you and the other team members. And invariably, people will be inquisitive, and it can lead to the forging of new relationships between individuals. You know, I've seen that happen. I did it in a open workshop once, so it's people from different organisations. But there was this laughter, and I went over, and there was two women, and they were doing this journey of life. And then all of a sudden, they found they had identical tattoos on their wrists, um, and they're still in touch with each other. I mean, this
yeah,
workshop I did was 15 years ago,
yeah,
but they've still that created this friendship that has gone on for so many years. Um,
yeah. It's brilliant.
yeah, it's just taking an interest in other people, basically. Um,
Yeah, because when you get
yeah,
those new teams together,
yeah.
if they don't know each other, you've got the creeping death approach of go around the room and tell us something that we wouldn't
Oh,
know about you, and it could
yeah,
go away. You know, some of it can be interesting, but finding interesting ways to do that, and that kind of
yeah,
um, it's hard to do it. But I think but then it's always going to be awkward because people are talking about themselves, and
yeah,
people don't want to talk about themselves until they start talking about themselves. That's what
yeah,
I've
yeah,
found. Once you
yeah,
start them talking about themselves, they're really interested because that's their specialist subject at the end of
yeah,
the day.
yeah, yeah,
And I think it's key to kind of get that. And but for being able to create these teams quickly, and that's one of the things that I've always found that I've always tried to be able to is kind of when we put these teams together is to get them working as a team as
Yeah.
soon as possible,
Yeah.
and anything that can oil those wheels
Yeah.
is something welcome to me. So
Yeah.
obviously we've got, as you say, there's the Myers-Briggs stuff that I looked at. There's loads of other different things that I've looked at and
Yeah.
used in different ways, and I imagine you did as well. What drove you to kind of bring a slightly different approach to it, and the more detailed approach that you do on this from what I've seen? What was the driver behind? What was the sort of, I don't know, genesis of that idea?
Yeah. So I got the behavioural psychology under my belt. That was the first thing, and so I became an accidental project manager in 1992,
Right.
which is way back in history. You know, the dinosaurs had just disappeared off Earth. Um,
Oh,
it's,
I was
it's
around that time. It was only a couple of
yeah.
years later. I joined the police. It's not that long ago.
Well, this gives you an idea of how long ago it was. It was the first season of the Premier League football.
Yeah, cool.
Um, Absolutely fabulous. The comedy show had just come on TV.
And there was
Um,
no window.
there was a little band, fairly unknown band from Manchester that was just starting out called Oasis. And in 1992, the first ever text message was sent,
Wow.
and it was sent by a Vodafone engineer. I can't remember his surname. His first name is Peter. He was a Vodafone engineer, and he sent it to his boss's phone, and his boss was at a Christmas party, and the message simply said "Merry Christmas." Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was 1992. So for it,
It was a
so
long time ago. Okay, I'll give you that.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was a long time ago.
So for 8 years, I studied behavioural psychology. I used it in the workplace, and I found, wow, that works really well. We're starting to build trust between individuals, getting people to understand each other. But there was also something missing, and that was well, how effectively are we working together? So I went on in the year 2000, I went on a leadership course. And one of the questions that they asked us was, what is the difference between a group of people and a team? And weirdly, you said you looked at an email the other day about your project and the project team that you work with, and it sparked off. I was up in my loft because, over the years, you just ram things in boxes, put them in the loft, never to see the light of day. And my wife and I said, we've got to get rid of all this rubbish that's up in the loft. So, a bit like that Stacey Solomon program, 50% has got to go. So, one of the boxes, I have my course notes from the year 2000, and it is a thing that goes in the past. They were actually faxed to me. So it still had the fax number at the top. But it was, yeah, but it was the start of this team dynamics model, because on this course, I'd written things like a team has got a purpose, um, sort of a common goal. Why does that team exist? What are they trying to achieve? A team has regular meetings. They have particular communication channels. A team, there is accountability between individuals. So I started to write all these things down, and after the course, me, being curious, being inquisitive. My wife says I'm a nosy bugger, but that's a different perspective. But I started to look at, well, what are the things that we need to understand about teamwork? So eventually I came up with this model called Team Dynamics, and it's spelt with a capital DNA because it's the DNA of a team, how we work together. and it's got 16 areas. So, for instance, there's purpose. 4 out of 10 people don't understand the purpose of their team, which is frightening. If you've got a team of 10, there's potentially 4 people that haven't got a clue why they're there on a daily basis. There's purpose, there's accountability, there's vision. What are we trying to achieve 5 years down the road? There's roles and responsibilities, processes, trust, engagement, cooperation, commitment. So there's 16 areas. Those are just a few of them. So I then created questions that I could ask team members to get an understanding of whether a particular area of teamwork was working effectively and efficiently, or whether it was a challenge to the team. So, off the back of the team dynamics model, I created an in-depth report that measures overall team effectiveness and then 16 areas of teamwork. So you can say that your team is 62% effective, which means that that team is developing, because I've used it with lots and lots of teams. So I've got lots of data to benchmark where teams are. So you can be a developing team, you can be an average team, you can be a good team, and you can be a high performing team. So this report acts as a benchmark for teams to understand where they are. And then if you've got that benchmark, if you're measuring something, you can celebrate what's working well, because we all like to celebrate and make sure that we continue to do the same things. But really importantly, it highlights areas of challenge, and then the team can discuss those areas of challenge and actually come up with practical solutions to overcome those challenges. So the teams I work with, they use the report as a benchmark, they discuss, celebrate, and then they transform and overcome challenges, and then they use the report to remeasure to see the difference it's made over 4-6 months time. So yeah, so that was the sort of second stage of my journey, was creating this team dynamics model, and then that's been used worldwide. It's licensed to be used by facilitators, and then that lovely guy with the looks like a bit of a scarecrow, blonde hair. He used to be, I think, like Prime Minister or something. He came onto our screens in 2020, March
Yeah.
2020, and he said, yeah, keep the NHS safe, save lives, stay at home. And I thought, thanks, mate. That's my business down the tubes. No, nobody's going to want a conference speaker or a team development facilitator. So I changed it to stay at home, save teams, write a book. So so that's when I wrote this little baby, Team Lead Succeed. Would I do it again? No. It's hard work. But I mean, the great thing is, I went out to about 40 or 50 people even before I wrote a word of it, and I said, there's loads of books about leadership. I said, so I don't want to write a book about leadership because there's more team members than leaders. I want to write a book that would help leaders and team members. So I went out to about between 40 and 50 people. I said, here's my idea. Is it a good idea? What would you want in it? To read it and make it useful. And they came back, and some of them were in the world of project management, and they said, we want practical suggestions. We want a little bit of theory, but not too much. We want a little bit of humor in there. We want ideas, suggestions, questions, things to make us think about our teamwork. So I wrote it based on the feedback of people who said, we'll read it if it's in this sort of format. And it seems to have gone down extremely well. And as you said earlier on, became a book of national interest, which was weird. Because every
Well,
book,
yeah, I read it
yes,
and I thought,
I know, it's bizarre. Every book that's published,
yeah,
the author, you have to send a copy of it to the British Library.
you're honest. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If they think, oh, in actual fact, this is interesting and needs to be preserved, not just in the
Yeah.
British Library, they come back and say, at your own expense, we want you to send 5 copies of your book. One goes to the Library of Ireland, which is in Dublin,
Yes.
because they're still seen as part of the books of national interest. One copy's in the Oxford University, one's at Cambridge University, one's in the Library of the National Library of Wales, and one's in the National Library of Scotland. So
Well,
it,
horrific, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. So basically, it means that they think, oh, this could be of interest, and therefore we need to keep other copies. Yeah.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's dedicated to my dog as well. It's probably one of the only business books that is actually dedicated to a dog. I didn't want to say, I didn't want to say this is dedicated to, my wife, my mother, my auntie, my uncle, the bloke who cuts my hair. I didn't want I didn't want any of that. But my dog, bless him, he passed away during COVID while I was writing the book. I had to stop. I stopped for 2 months. I couldn't write anything because he used to like going out for lots of walks, only short walks because he was quite old, but it was on a regular basis. So 20-minute walk, 3 hours later, can I have another 20-minute walk? So I used to take my phone with me, and that was my thinking time and where I got my ideas for the book. And I quickly write a note in my and save it on my notes on my phone. And then when I come back in, I'd sit down and I'd look at those notes and I'd start writing. Um, so yeah, for 2 months, I didn't write anything after he passed away. So my wife said at the time, she said, "Why don't you dedicate it to Zippo because that's where you got all your ideas when you used to walk him." So yeah, I've got him to thank. I've got him and Boris, and obviously a Chinese laboratory to thank for that book.
Well, everyone's got it. I'm sure it's out there helping quite a few people out there. With the, do you want to just give us a little? We're running up towards time in a minute, but do you want to
Yeah.
give us a little outline of what people can expect to see in the book if they grab it? Obviously, don't give all the secrets
No.
because then they won't buy it. But you know what I mean?
Well,
Just give us a outline of it and kind of think what they might learn from there. Some little
yeah.
teasers.
It's basically it's got 21 chapters, and we've talked about the sort of the framework for it. The first couple of chapters, I give you a bit of background about myself so that you know my credibility. Then start talking about behaviors and relationships. Then we get into the who's in your team. So there's some learning in there about the psychology behind it. The sanguine, the phlegmatics. Also, I talk about introversion, extroversion, thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. Then that's the first 5 chapters, and then 16 chapters are about the 16 areas of teamwork, and there's a story about each one. So, and it's a real life story as well. It's something that's happened when I've been facilitating with the team. And then it gives you suggestions, it gives you questions to ask your teams. And then there's one chapter on leadership. And I went out to 11, I went out to 12, but one couldn't meet the deadline. So I went out to 12 leaders, of which 11 are in the book, where they give their take on leadership. So nothing to do with me. I thought, I don't want to put my views on leadership. Here's 11 people that I know are exemplary leaders because their staff have told me they're brilliant. So they're in the book and they give their take on leadership. So yeah, so it's as I said, and it's practical. There's a page at the end of each chapter where you can write your notes, because it's really important. If you're reading something and something comes into your head, grab a pen, just write it down in the page on the in the book. So yeah, it's people have found it useful. However, one person said, well, we've got the book, we've got the report that you've created, the team dynamics report. So they said, and we still get you in to sort of facilitate teamwork with us. Is there any way that we could use the report and the learning in the book to do all this stuff ourselves without the need to get any external facilitation? And that got me thinking. And I thought, that's a great idea. So let's push things a little bit further. And I came across this absolutely amazing guy called Lee Davies, and Lee is a digital learning content creator. So I shared the idea with Lee. I showed him the book, I showed him the report, and in 2024 we launched a product called Our Team Synergy, which combines an online learning academy with the ability to produce your own team dynamic reports, and therefore leaders and team members are getting the learning about teamwork that they need, that their organizations aren't supporting them with at the moment. And then they're getting a report which is actually a measurement tool, a benchmark that they can use. So that was launched in 2024, and the feedback has been absolutely incredible, because teamwork's been identified as one of the top 10 must-have skills. That was LinkedIn. They did a survey, so teamwork is really high up on the agenda. The other thing about it is AI won't cut it. When you're talking about teamwork, AI doesn't understand emotions. AI doesn't understand sarcasm, wit, etc. It just understands data. Yeah. So the online learning that we've created is actually real life learning, to get you and your team talking to each other. So yeah, it's really exciting times at the moment. There's some really big organizations that we're in discussions with. Some are already using it, and they're finding it really, really powerful and really valuable, because it's giving their leaders and team members not only the data about their teamwork and the reports about how effective they are, it's giving them the learning to actually then have the conversations, transform as a team. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Brilliant. I just,
So
uh, as people who are watching this, and maybe even you'll see that my eyes are diverting. So I'm on your website and skipping through the different bits on the website on the different things in there was kind of
yeah,
just thinking, oh, more. Because I remember also I saw you at Synergy, PMI Synergy event last year, and uh, yeah, I've got to say that it was a fascinating presentation. That's why I wanted you on the show. The energy level that you brought out on that. So if people are looking for a high energy, highly informative conference speaker, I couldn't recommend Nick any better than that, because the only thing I had was I didn't have enough time to take photos with my phone of all the different slides that you kept throwing up there. I'm going, oh, I need to take a photo of that, and then they were going, and it was, there was so much information. It was brilliant, and it really did. I did find it really, really fascinating and really helpful. And I think hopefully just some of the things we've talked about today, about the fact that People need to think differently. We've all done the Myers-Briggs. Look at each other, look at myself, work out if I'm a plant, am I a completer finisher,
Yeah.
stuff, or done some of the other stuff. But that concept of looking at it from a manager's point of view, a team, is something
Yeah.
I don't think I can do enough, and I think
No.
it's something that having. And the reason we don't do it is because it's hard, and not having a framework to do it makes it harder. And this
Yeah.
seems to lead us down that route to be able to help enable that, which is brilliant. So,
Yeah.
as I say,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
common
Yeah.
point.
I mean, one of the things that it scares me still is that the majority of teams, project teams, operational teams, they are measured on key performance indicators, and those key performance indicators, invariably it's the iron triangle, project triangle, the constraints triangle,
Yeah,
call it whatever you want, but it's cost, quality, and time. All those three are impacted by how effective or not your teamwork is.
yeah,
And yet teams spend hours and days looking at their KPIs. A lot of teams spend very little time looking at their teamwork, which is often the root cause of their failure or indeed their success.
yeah. And I think some of the things that flip back on that are where you see in the agile community, where you've got that concept, if done right, that
Yeah,
retrospective of how are we working, what's working right, what's not doing well, and doing that on a regular basis kind of
yeah,
leads you that way with maybe without that structure.
yeah,
But see those when I've seen those things, it's been really good. But I think there's even more that we can do as managers and as a team members as well. So
yeah,
um, obviously, I've took us down a couple of little rabbit holes, talked a
yeah.
load of. So, was there anything firstly, was there anything that you wanted to cover that, or you'd like to just say to people that we didn't have a chance to cover so far? And also, if people want to find out more, obviously jump on Amazon, buy the book or whatever, or find out any more about the team dynamics and the other side of it. What's the best way of getting hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered most things, which has been fantastic. Easiest thing if people want to grab hold of me is I'm regularly on LinkedIn. I share a lot of thoughts and ideas about teamwork and how to achieve high performance. I also throw in a bit of humour, some humorous stories, which also have some learning attached to them. So, there's as Nigel, you looked at today, my humorous journey across to
Yeah.
America and how, the US border guard
Oh,
didn't
humorous now,
enjoy my.
terrifying at the time, wasn't it?
Sorry?
It was humorous having listened in reflection. I
Oh,
imagine it wasn't at the time.
no, no. At the time, when I was in the room with the other two guys, I'm thinking, please don't pull out the rubber glove. Please do not pull out the rubber glove. Um,
So let's
yeah,
leave that as a teaser for people to follow
yeah,
you on
yeah,
LinkedIn
yeah.
if they can find that
Yeah.
story.
So yeah, LinkedIn's probably the easiest, and just drop me a connection, say hi. You know, if you've come across me through this wonderful podcast, mention that because then I can give some feedback to Nige.
Yeah,
But yeah,
cool.
I think apart from that, we've covered most things.
Brilliant.
Uh, yeah, and it's I'm on my next project at the moment, which is, as you know, is helping this team of rowers row across the Atlantic. That's been a fascinating journey, and yeah, they've been going since the 11th of December. Should get in by the 16th of February. Uh, 3,000 miles, 2 hours, 2 hours on and 2 hours off each day rowing. No, not each day. 2 hours, yeah, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 24/7. Um, and I just found something fascinating today. The rowing boat that they're going across in, it's called a Rannoch R45, and theirs is called Jasmine 2. And when it's fully laden with the three of them in it and all their equipment and the kit, because it's totally unaided crossing, it weighs the same as a Mini Cooper, or a full-size male bison. Now, you wouldn't want to row either of those at 3,000 miles across, would you? Yeah.
No. And it's fascinating because I know you mentioned it, that you kind of gave up your time to help those guys work
Yeah.
on their team dynamics to be able to make it successful. It's a fascinating application because obviously you can't, if you're doing that, and again it could have took this but on its own, if you're doing that as a team, that team has got to be high performing to row 3,000 miles across an open sea like the Atlantic.
Yeah.
It's so actually when you look at it, applying those techniques and the learning that you've got and the coaching you've got to give them obviously
Yeah.
is critical for that success. And and just simply be able to get on with someone else, which is
I
what
know.
50% of what teamwork is getting on with the other
Get on with
person that
it.
you're.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have to like the person, but you get on with them. It's the key
Yeah.
thing, isn't it? That's where
Yeah.
it goes.
And I'll leave you with one fact, because I had to delve into what their biggest fears were,
Yeah,
and this may be a good point to finish things off on and to give people sleepless nights. So I said to one of the rowers, Sally, I said, "What's your biggest fear about crossing the Atlantic?" She said, on a regular basis, every 3 to 4 days, we have to go over the side of the boat and go underneath the boat and scrape off the barnacles,
yeah, of
because
course.
barnacles reduce the drag. Also, the barnacles will attract small fish, which attract marlins, which a couple of the boats have actually been holed by the marlins when they basically speared the boats and the boats start sinking. They've got to have putty to put. Anyway, so I said to her, I said, "What's your biggest fear?" She said, "Going over the side of the boat, scraping off the barnacles, and not knowing what is 5 miles below my feet." And that is a scary thought. Some parts of the Atlantic, there's
5 miles.
5 miles of water beneath you.
Yeah, which is ridiculous, isn't it? Really, that
I
the
know.
immense. So, just to a few podcasts of other people who've rowed and watched a few shows on that, and that whole immenseness of what that undertaking is
Yeah,
crazy. So I suppose if people want, and I know there's quite a few posts that you put on sharing of that team in there getting prep for that. So again, jumping on LinkedIn and grabbing a load of the information on that if people are fascinated about it, it probably be a good thing to do. So I think Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll drop links to stuff in the show notes. People will be able to grab it, or just, as you say, Google your name. They'll find you because it's easy. I've done it.
yeah.
And
I'd like to say thank you ever so much for inviting me and the opportunity, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this evening. I've thoroughly
me too.
enjoyed our chat.
Me too. You have a great evening, my friend.
Yeah, and you likewise.
Thanks.
Take care.
So I have a number of sponsors, affiliate links in the way that it's set up that have kindly allowed me to share their services. Really, the first one is Mike Clayton, and Mike runs online PM courses, and it is a great resource for getting those fundamentals of project management trained, reasonably priced, and Mike presents it in an accessible and clear manner. You can check out some of his videos on his YouTube channel and kind of give you a view of where they are. But the code for that, if you go to nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, all one word, lowercase, that'll redirect you to it. There's very different levels that you can buy. You can buy individual courses, you can buy pathways as well, if you like. And I get a kickback off those. Mike kindly shares me that. So if you do jump on and use it, I hope you find it really useful. I think he has money back guarantees and things like that as well. So there's very limited risk on that. So jump on that, and that again, it's nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, and enjoy.
I think one of the key things for a leader is therefore developing that psychological safety. And I say to leaders, not just project management, but in operational management as well, when you go in and you lead a new team, you've got to take that team out of the day-to-day business, the business as usual, or out of the project environment, and actually spend some quality time getting to understand each other. One of the easiest ways to do it is profiling. I think the key thing, this psychological safety, is don't see people as difficult, see them as different to you. Don't be frustrated by how they do things, be fascinated that they do things differently. And I think that's one of the key things to get the team to understand, and that will start to build trust. And once you've got trust in place, then you can start to go places.
Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.